Okay, let's start with the last country presentation. Last, of course, but not least. Not least also because we are talking with the president of a twin association of Restauro in Croatia, the Association for Conservation and Restoration. So thank you for being here, President Maria Rabeschi. Then, as usual, you will find on our website www.restorationweek.it a web page dedicated to Croatia, to the next activity planned by the Italian Trade Agency, and as usual, Roberto Rovato will introduce to us the next and the future programs on Croatia.
Thank you, Andrea. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of Italian Trade Agency to this seminar dedicated to the opportunity of a collaboration between Italy and Croatia in the field of restoration of historical and cultural heritage. In recent decades, Italy and Croatia have developed an intense economic exchange in different productive sectors, facilitated by their geographic proximity and by common historical and cultural roots. It is precisely this common historical and cultural base that today facilitate the search for collaboration in sectors such as that of restoration, whose purpose is to preserve the heritage derived from our history in order to pass it to the future generation. In this process of protection, the exchange of experience and skills plays a fundamental role in, and it is the goal of today's seminar. At the end, I thank again all of you for your participation. Obviously, I thank also the institutions that have collaborated in the realization in this initiative, the Restoration Week, so the trade fair of Ferrara and Bari, obviously Restauro, and due to the fact that this is the last seminar of this cycle for this year, I give you appointment to next year, because we are sure we will meet again in this occasion. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Roberto, and for sure we will meet in Ferrara for the Restoration Week 2022 with new programs. Again, Maria Rabeschi, Croatian Conservation Restoration Association. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here. Hello to everyone. I hope I won't be long and you'll find my presentation interesting. Maybe back like, yes, it's the opposite. Cultural heritage, tangible and intangible, is the commonwealth of humanity and in its diversity and uniqueness, and its protection is important for the recognition, definition, and affirmation of cultural identity. Although one of the smaller countries in Europe, in terms of territory, Croatia is rich in diverse cultural heritage. In addition to numerous material remains that testify to the continuous presence of man in this area, a large part of the intangible heritage has been preserved. In the past, many nations passed through this area and left their mark visible today in some segments of culture. The amphitheater in Pula is the largest and best preserved monument of ancient Roman architecture in Croatia. The arena has been repaired. Outer mantle and some subsequent repairs were made of stone from Istria. This stone will also be used for the latest renovation, which will be done by the German company Remers. Numerous influences from the time of prehistoric cultures to people such as the Illyrians, Greeks, Romans, and the rule of Austro-Hungary and the long-term presence of the Ottoman Empire are intervened here. These numerous influences have not only intervened, but have created a distinctive whole in this area, which the local community has formed in a unique and unrepeatable way. Neolithic archaeological site discovered in 1897, many decorated pottery was found at the site, one of which is the shape of a dove called the Vučedol dove. Also, Krapina prehistoric man is a popular name for Neanderthals whose fossil remains were found in a cave near Krapina. The collection was collected during excavation in 1899. The greatest trace was left by the Croats during the migration of the Slavs, who arrived in this area according to material evidence in the 7th century. This is a Glagolitic script, mid-9th century. Baščanska ploča, Baška plate, a monument written in Glagolitic around 11,000, it was found in the church of St. Lucia in Jurandvor on the island of Krk. Apoksiomen, bronze Greek sculpture found in the Adriatic Sea near Mali Lošinj, through various stages of conservation and restoration. The sea near Lošinj had been keeping a secret for over 2,000 years. A tourist diver's accidental dive in 1996 triggered a series of events which led to the most beautiful discovery of the Adriatic underwater world, sculpture of Apoksiomen. Discovery, recovery, restoration, and new life of the handsome statue of an ancient Greek athlete have become an intriguing story in the new history of Croatian culture. The wholeness and the beauty of the creation of this work of art are impressive. A special reason for experts' enthusiasm was the fact that the statue had been found complete. The only thing missing was the little finger on its left hand. Unfortunately, the strigil and the eyes, which are assumed to have been inserted, were not found. The detailed restoration of the Apoksiomen statue led by Croatian and Italian experts traced this extremely well-preserved sculpture back to the 2nd or 1st century BC. In order to remove the harmful salts, pool desalination was done first. The restoration process of removing the thick layer of incrustation was done only mechanically, without the use of chemical substances. Restorers were careful not to damage the original patina perfectly preserved. After a total of 6 years of restoration, the Apoksiomen statue finally appeared in all its beauty. You can see various monuments from the Renaissance era. Croatia has valuable monuments ranging from prehistoric to present day, 10 of which are under UNESCO protection on the World Heritage List. You probably all know for Diocletian's palace in Split, Spalato. The Roman Emperor Diocletian spent the last years of his life in a huge palace that he built next to the city where he was born, Aspalatosa in Dalmatia. Even today, the beauty of the peristyle of the palace, Diocletian's museum, Jupiter's temple, colonnades along the streets, early Christian churches, Romanesque houses, the gates of Andrija Buvina, and the architectural works of Juraj Dalmatinac can be seen. This is before and after preservation and restoration. The project of complete restoration and presentation of the peristyle was one of the most extensive conservation and restoration programs in Croatia. The project is divided into several phases, from the rehabilitation of the foundation and structure, through the cleaning and conservation of stone, plaster, and other materials to the final presentation. This is desalinization. Apart from the renovation itself, this project is also important because a new scientific approach to restoration and conservation has been implemented in practice, thus joining Croatia to modern approaches to restoration and conservation of stone. Another famous one is Euphrasian Basilica in town Poreču. One of the oldest and most beautiful monuments in Poreču, which includes a complex of sacral buildings erected during the time of Bishop Euphrasius. The present form of the basilica was given in the 13th and 15th centuries. The apse is richly decorated with figurative mosaics, which together with the mosaics of the Church of San Vitale in Ravenna represent the most significant examples of mosaic art in Europe. Here are some mosaics. In 2019, the renovation of the bell tower of the Euphrasian Basilica, which was erected back in 1522, began. The project is led by the Croatian Restoration Institute. Now we have Romanesque town of Trogir. The old town of Trogir was founded by Greek colonists from the island of Vis in the 3rd century BC. On this ancient core lies the historic core of Trogir, which is the best preserved Romanesque Gothic city, not only on the Adriatic, but also in Central Europe. Trogir's medieval core, surrounded by walls, combines a well-preserved castle and tower, as well as numerous buildings and palaces from the Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque periods. The most significant building is the Trogger Cathedral, with the portal of the western door, a masterpiece by Master Radovan, the most significant example of Romanesque Gothic art in Croatia. This is a portal of Master Radovan, before and after restoration. And now, probably you all heard for Dubrovnik. The walls of Old Dubrovnik are rounded off by an exceptionally well-preserved complex of public and private, sacral and secular buildings from all periods of the city's history, from its very foundation in the 7th century. The Republic of Dubrovnik was a special political and territorial entity proud of its culture, successful trade, and especially the freedom that they managed to preserve through the turbulent centuries. Dubrovnik was badly damaged in the 1991 war, but has been rebuilt to these days. Here we must especially mention the main street of the old town, Stradun, the Rector's Palace, the Church of St. Blaise, the Cathedral, 3 large monasteries, the Custom Building, and the City Hall. Then we have Chibney Cathedral. The Cathedral of St. James in Šibenik is a 3-nave basilica with 3 apses and a dome. The construction of the cathedral began in the Venetian Gothic style, but was completed in the Tuscan Renaissance style. This unique sacral monument is an extremely interesting example, as the only building without masonry elements, and where walls, vaults, and domes were constructed by a unique method first used by Juraj Dalmatinac, where precisely carved stone parts are subsequently assembled as a whole, a method that used in carpentry. The result is the harmony of the stone wall, the method of stacking, and the absolute harmony of the interior and exterior volume of the cathedral. Then we have a fortress of St. Nicholas. As a part of the Venetian fortification from the 16th and 17th centuries, on the territory of Croatia there is the fortress of St. Nicola and the defensive walls of Zadar. Fortress of St. Nicola is located near the town of Šibenik on a small island. The reason for its construction is the conquest of the town of Skradin by the Turks in 1522. The most interesting part of the fort is a triangular shape. Such forms were extremely rare at the time, both in Croatia and in Europe. It is also interesting that the fort never fulfilled its reason for construction because it was not active in combat or defense. Then we have a stečak, medieval tombstone. Medieval tombstones were created in the period from the second half of the 20th to the 16th century. The tombstones are carved from a unique piece of stone that reflects the skills and knowledge of the master who made it. They were often decorated with inscription or simple images such as a spiral, bows, stars, or religious symbol. The most famous motif of the stečak is a man with his right hand raised, as you can see on the right side. Apart from the cultural heritage, I would just like to highlight the Croatian national parks, which are so far under UNESCO protection too. Starogradsko polje, because its parcelization dates back to the time of Greek colonization. Plitvice Lakes, Northern Velebit National Park, Paklenica National Park. So, in 2014, there was a major flood in the area of Cvelferia, and in 2020, there were several strong earthquakes in Zagreb and Petrinja that further and irreversibly damaged many protected cultural heritage in Croatia. Several valuable museums in Zagreb were severely damaged in this earthquake. Many artifacts are partially or completely damaged. Emergency rescue and storage interventions were carried out. This is flood in Cvelferia, the streets of Petrinja, the streets of Zagreb, Basilica of the Heart of Jesus and the streets of Zagreb, Museum of Arts and Crafts in Zagreb. We have still a long way to go to complete the restoration of all damaged cultural heritage. So I will say a few words about my association. HRD, the National Professional Association of Conservators and Restorers, has been established in 1994, but in the last years, especially from 2010 on, has become proactive. In 2019, for the 25th anniversary, HRD organized a General Assembly of ECHO that brought together delegates in heritage conservation and restoration from 21 European countries. That's me in the middle. In the past few years, we have come a long way by bringing together colleagues from conservation community from all lines of work, public institutions, state institutions, freelance conservators, restorers, and conservators, restorers working as lecturers and mentors, teaching in study programs for conservation and restoration. So I would like to say a few words about beginning of Croatian protection of monuments. Can be found in the building regulations of the medieval statutes of Dalmatian towns Korčula and Dubrovnik in 1214 and 1272, and in the Renaissance and Baroque the first building regulations is in the Republic of Dubrovnik stood out. The classicist purifier notions in the protection of cultural monuments were first encouraged in 1757 by the British architect Robert Adam, by studying Diocletian's palace, and Vicko Andrić from Split, who gave a project of the restoration of the palace in its original forms, 1857. So we came through Austro-Hungarian Central Commission for Research and Maintenance of Architectural Monuments. And since 1910, the protection of all historical layers has been represented by the National Commission for the Preservation of Artistic and Historical Monuments in Croatia and Slavonia. With the enhancement of the general law on the protection of cultural monuments in 1945, the first legal and organizational foundation of institutions were created. The Institute for the Restoration of Artworks was established in 1948 in Zagreb from the restoration workshop of the Zagreb Museum of Arts and Crafts, who is severely damaged now, which operated from 1942 to the end of 1946 and employed 2 restorers. Conservation workshops in Split were established in 1954 and Zadar, and in 1966 the Croatian Restoration Institute was founded. And in modern days, in 1994, the State Administration for the Protection of Cultural and Natural Heritage was established with headquarters in Zagreb, Rijeka, Zadar, Šibenik, Split, Dubrovnik, Osijek, Varaždin, and Karlovac. The establishment of the Croatian National Committee of ICOMOS and the Croatian Commission for UNESCO 1993 improved reconstruction after the Homeland War in 1991 and cooperation with international organizations for the protection of monuments, in which Croatia made a significant contribution to the program of restoration of historic settlements. And a few words about training of conservators and restorers in Croatia. We have 3 studies for the conservation and restoration. Graduate study in Academy of Fine Arts in Zagreb since 1997. Graduate study in Split, and undergraduate study since 2005 in Dubrovnik. And to end the story, professional associations in Croatia. My association, Croatian Conservation Restoration Association, Section for Restoration and Design Phonics at the Association of Fine Artists of Applied Arts of Croatia, Section of Restorers and Preparators at the Croatian Museum Society, and Croatian section at the International Institute for Conservation of Historic and Artistic Work, IIC. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Maria. It was the last presentation. It is very late, so see you tomorrow at home for the people connecting from home, 2:30 from Matera in live streaming and out of the records. Adesso abbiamo un bellissimo aperitivo dedicato a tutti i soci di Asso Restauro and the delegates for an aperitif to close the day. Thank you very much.